Good afternoon from India. My name is Janmijay and I'm a research associate with the Center for Urban Planning and Governance at TERI. A warm welcome everyone to the 2021 edition of TERI's annual flagship event, the World Sustainable Development Summit. The summit this year is being held virtually from 10th to 12th February 2021 under the broad theme Redefining Our Common Future, Safe and Secure Environment for All. This edition of the WSDS marks 20 years of the platform, and it is a matter of great pride for Terry that all of you respected speakers and delegates have joined us for this important milestone. Your support is instrumental in the success of the platform and our efforts. On day 3 of the WSDS, I am delighted to welcome you all to this thematic track on planning cities for a sustainable future, being held in partnership with the European Union and the GIZ. The session aims to provide a platform for planners, policymakers, and practitioners to discuss their ideas on sustainable urbanization and their experience with addressing different urbanization challenges. In addition, we also have a discussion on the global partnerships and initiatives at the metropolitan scale that have helped cities enhance their planning capacities as well as resilience. Now, to kickstart the session, I would like to request Mr. Sanjay Seth, Senior Director of the Sustainable Habitat Program at TERI, to deliver the introductory remarks. Mr. Seth is a member of various expert committees on urban development, constituted by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, the Government of India. Prior to TERI, he was with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Ministry of Power, Government of India. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Janmijay. Good afternoon, everyone, and it's such a privilege to be sharing this platform with such esteemed and learned colleagues. I welcome you to the World Sustainable Development Summit 2021. As you all know, the pandemic has really put us on a spot, and we have to do this on a virtual platform rather than meeting in person. Today's thematic track titled Planning Cities for a Sustainable Future is being jointly hosted by TERI and the European Union, an esteemed partner for the summit. The session aims to deliberate on various urbanization challenges and the planning and management approaches that can be undertaken to address them. The session will also focus on global partnerships that can be leveraged to help improve the quality of life in urban areas. As we know that urban areas are core drivers of social and economic growth that contribute about 60% to the global GDP. But at the same time, they also account for over 60% of the resource use globally. Thereby, cities face a number of urbanization challenges, such as air pollution, high levels of noise, waste management, so on and so forth, which really impact quality of life. And as I've said earlier, the challenges always throw up opportunities. So here is that, I think we need to capitalize and see how we can use this to improve the quality of life as we move on. Climate change impacts such as extreme weather events also cause disruption in urban services and damage to infrastructure facilities. Thus, cities must seize the opportunity to resolve these divergent challenges for a sustainable future. Cities across the globe have addressed these challenges through various planning strategic approaches over the years. And in order to pave the way for a sustainable future, learning from these past experiences and transforming the way we build and manage our urban spaces is critical. We at the Government of India have also adopted many such approaches. They have launched several urban transformation schemes, such as AMRUT, which is the abbreviation for Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, the Swachh Bharat Mission, and the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which is a housing program which has been launched, and of course, the flagship Smart Cities Mission to make cities livable, sustainable, smart, and inclusive. Within the Smart Cities mission, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has also developed the Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework, which not only focuses on aspects such as waste and water management, green buildings, mobility, air quality, and urban planning to improve resilience building, but also helps us to evaluate as we move along and implement the mission as to how we are really moving ahead. In the government, strive towards enhancing sustainability of the Indian cities, global partnerships and collaborations between various stakeholders for research, exchange of knowledge, institutional cooperation, and capacity building becomes important. Towards this objective, the European Union, the Government of India have been working together towards developing a sustainable urban solution for through this, for example, through the cities to city pairing under the International Urban Cooperation Program. Mayors and municipal commissioners in EU and India have been engaging in knowledge sharing and exchange for developing innovative solutions. TERI is also collaborating with various partners to develop the urban living labs and city finance labs in its endeavor to promote sustainable and resilient urban infrastructure. By providing technical support to multiple tiers of urban governance, we hope to upscale and promote livable cities. I look forward to the meaningful deliberations today and hope that there would be key takeaways which will help us to further the cause. I thank you all today for joining us on this platform, and I look forward to your deliberations. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting the need for cities to adopt and lead the way towards sustainable development. I would now like to request Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, Director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, to tell us more about the Government of India's initiatives for smart and sustainable urbanization. Mr. Vaidya has also been the country representative of the UN Habitat India and has extensive experience in urban development policy and governance. Sir, I invite you to the platform.
Very good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Seth, my fellow distinguished panelists, dignitaries who have joined this platform, colleagues, and all the representatives from states and cities and friends. Again, a very good afternoon. Let me first start by thanking TERI, EU delegation, and GIZ India for inviting me to address our 2021 edition of the World Sustainable Development Summit. It's really pleasure and an honor to be a part of this discourse. And as we all know that this is, I think, the first global discourse of this new decade. So congratulations, Mr. Seth and TERI, for organizing this, because while we are coming out of COVID and we have a vaccine, I think this discourse is actually a search for a vaccine for a sustainable city. And I think that's what we all should be searching, a new vaccine, because we call it a new normal. While we have searched the COVID shield, this discourse will, I hope, will pave a way for a new COVID shield for future of our cities. So congratulations for organizing this workshop. You know, during this call, while we are talking about new normal, even though I don't like the word new normal because it looks like we were not normal before. But you know, saying that this word has become so common, I'll use this word. Instead, our Prime Minister gave a call of 3 calls. And I think these 3 calls really give a whole discourse which we should be talking about sustainability, a city sustainable future. And these 3 calls were self-sufficient India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Second was vocal the local. And third was 5 trillion economy. So if these are the 3 calls, and these has to be fructified, these 3 calls will be fructified only in cities. Because Mr. Seth just now talked about the way urbanization is growing, the challenges which is going, I'll not get into that. But these 3 calls from the political leadership and from the thought leadership or a policy leadership, whatever you call them, if they have to be fructified, they have to be fructified through the cities only. And what are the main lessons, if you really go back and say that, you know, while we are coming out of a COVID, what were the main lessons we learned from the COVID? And if you really looked at all the initiatives were driven at the local level, whatever we said, there was all driven at the local level. Second thing, first time in the city, at a city level, we saw the convergence between the sanitation, convergence between health workers, convergence with the city officials, with the health officials. which was unprecedented. Even when we used to be a part of, there used to be two ministries, Ministry of Urban Development and Ministry of Housing Affairs at the policy level. The two ministries never used to see eye to eye to each other. And this, we really saw that whole convergence taking place, which could not have been possible with and that's why I say COVID was an opportunity that people started realizing that we have a common good together and that we need to really work towards it. Second thing which we realized during the COVID scenario was data and technology played a great role. They emerged as the key ingredients for sustainability. And that's great because we could find out where are the containment zones, what are the people who are suffering from COVID, which needs hospitalization, who needs some kind of quarantine facilities, and where are those quarantine facilities at the ward level, at the local level. We could use and we could map the spatial planning of public spaces and say that, okay, there is a school, can we make it in the quarantine zone? So the spatial mapping, data and technology, they emerge as a key ingredients for sustainable future. We also looked at human capital. Sanitation workers, we needed a lot of capacity building to clearly make cities keep their operations going. And that was another learning, that huge capacity building efforts at different levels, at the frontline levels, is required so that they can understand how the city. But one good thing, why I say that, look at opportunity. When 8 months of COVID happened, while we might criticize things happened, things did not happen, cities functioned. In India, when you say city governments does not function, city governments functioned. We saw cities operational. Nobody died because of hunger. There was no complaint of solid waste management. There was no complaint of leadership at the local level. I think these emerged out automatically because of the challenges, and that need to be celebrated. And I think we as a group here, sitting here, which is working in the city, should actually give a big clap to all our city leaders who kept us right now we are standing and talking to each other is because of their efforts at the local level. And I think this summit should really keep that, give the kudos to these city leaders and say that because of you today we are here and talking through the virtual platform. Otherwise, we also saw a lot of people who are not there after the COVID. So I must celebrate the success of India getting out of the COVID scenario. Other thing which we saw during this whole COVID, that top-down guidebooks did not work. It was operational day-to-day things. So you in the college days we used to have, when we used to go to exams, we used to look at last moment the guidebooks and read our things and pass the exams. That did not work. People really soiled their hands at the ground level. We also realized that one size fit will not work. Different situations will have a different solutions. So you have to have a solutions at the local level, and they have to be contextual. So those were the learnings, and what happened with these learnings. And I think 4 good documents which came up during this whole process last 3 months in India, which gives a possible directions for the sustainable cities in the future. And these 4 documents was National Infrastructure Pipeline for 2019 to 2025, Economic Survey 2020 to 2021, Budget 2021 budget, which also talked about long-term possibilities, and 15th Finance Commission report, which talks about empowering and strengthening financially the urban local bodies. So these were the 4 documents which came up. And what were these broad lessons among all of these documents which talked about long-term sustainable cities? They talked about that focus on local economic development. Start looking at unique properties of USPs of each urban local bodies and come up with the local economic development plans for the cities. Second thing, they talked about move away from traditional norm-based planning to outcome-oriented planning. So they talked about strategic planning rather than the master planning. Every city should go for a strategic plan. Third thing they talked about is unified governance. How data and evidence should be really influencing the policy discussions, rather than the policy discussion takes up somewhere else and data and evidence somewhere else. How to converge data and evidence for a policy discussion. Fourth, how we can drive technology to enable change. How do we capture the data, assess the city's problem, and move towards this evidence policy discourse. Fourth, which is coming up, focus on training and capacity building, skilling, and creating inclusive environment, which was another. And we all knew that we are now moving towards the decade of action rather than the decade of policy. But now that time has come, that action-oriented approach, it talks about looking at creativity and innovations to leapfrog for sustainable cities future, because it cannot be business as usual approach will not happen. We need to start thinking creative and innovative ideas and actions at the ground level rather than just working on the reports and research more, but because we have enough, let's pick up from there and start working on the ground. And last, which I think Mr. Seth has already talked about, and I will quote someone earlier for sustainability and climate change, because we all need to realize that in life we have option 1 and option B. For a climate change and sustainability, we don't have an option B. We have only option A. And if we like it or not like it, we not have a second planet to look at it and move towards this. This is the only planet where we will be working on. So if these are the broad policy contours which has been set up through these policy dialogues, I think the biggest challenge which is required, how to, there is no one has answer. We need to collaborate, we need to talk, we need a multi-level governance systems, we need a multi-stakeholder partnerships. And I think this platform which Terry has created, congratulate to them to start this dialogue discourse, that when we are moving out of COVID to new, how do we collaborate, talk to converge our ideas and talk about one action rather than we all working in our own silos. And trying. So he did mention about climate assessment framework, which we are doing in 126 cities in the country to come up with the indicators which will provide a database, and based on that database, can we create jointly a roadmap and handhold the cities to come up with a climate action plan for each city, and how we can really move towards sustainable future. I think that's the benchmark data which will be available, and we already have a partnership. It's called Climate Urban Alliance of India, which is started by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and National to converge these ideas, to converge our efforts, to pool our resources together to move forward. And we have been discussing with Terry and other partners who have been very, very supportive to us during this work. And I think we need to sit together, deliberate on it, how we can make best use of this thing, and how we can really, rather than duplicating and start instead of duplicating, replicating our efforts. I think that should be our main focus. And I'm aware of the time, so I will not take much of our time, but I also think that, we need to start looking at capacity building approaches. Also, it should not be just a usual calling training and you call 5 people and do that, but how we can really scale up the training efforts. And IUA has also started National Urban Learning Platform. The whole motto is capacity at the go. So if people have already modules, which are e-learning modules, which can be provided at one platform, and we can all these organizations which are part of this discussion, or all who are part of this dialogue, can come up with, and we can jointly start looking at different areas which require attention, and we have already capacity building. Can we converge our efforts together with our own brandings, our own copyrights and others? We will be happy to work with you all for that, and IUA moving forward will be requiring a lot of support from all of you, and I look forward for that relationship taking forward and building this climate alliance. Should not be just a crowding of all the resources, but come out of some kind of a good services and handhold, and make ourselves of value added to the states and cities. Because my 1 year in at NIUA and coming from the UN Habitat, I see National Institute of Urban Affairs as a UN Habitat of India. What is the ask from UN Habitat the member states had? The member states had 5 asks, which I can really think. Give us tools, give us techniques, give us templates, give us training and capacity building tools, and position it as a global level or at a platform where we can showcase our best practice. If these are the tools which are actually similar asks from 27 states of India from National Institute of Urban Affairs, how we can work together to really provide the asks which state and cities has from the policy think tanks like TERI and IUA, UN Habitat India, and other offices together. So can we converge for that? And that's where I'm definitely convinced with my last 1 year at NIUA and working on this, that if we could come up with the frameworks like SDGs, New Urban Agenda, Paris Agreement, and we'll surely come up with new age cities, if I can call that, which we can hand over to our next generation. So I wish all of you a great successful in these deliberations, and look forward to learn and work with you and engage with you to take this urban transformation discourse, which has been set up at India, to a next level. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for providing an overview of the different programs that are being implemented by the Government of India and NIUA towards building smart, sustainable, and resilient cities. May I now please invite Mr. Michel Mouchiroud, Coordinator for European Union Foreign Policy Instruments for Asia and Pacific and Delegation of the European Union to Thailand. Mr. Mouchiroud is also the coordinator for EU partnership actions for global issues, including EU urban cooperation towards sustainable development of cities. Requesting sir to please address the session.
Thank you, Janmijay. Thank you to the previous two speakers who have introduced, I think, the session quite well and already provided a lot of different points for us to take into account. And so I will not dwell too much on explaining the state of things in cities, which are at a challenge, increasing challenge now with COVID-19. For those of you who are still wondering why I'm sitting in here, behind my screen here in Bangkok and not closer to you in India, it is because indeed thank you, Janmijay, for introducing. I am responsible for sort of driving the EU partnership strategy on urban cooperation with Asia. This is something that we have taken very seriously, so I'm very thankful for TERI to invite me today here, also for the National Institute of Urban Affairs, because they have been key partners in our cooperation on urban issues previously. I also noticed that the Commissioner of Surat and the Mayor of Kochi will speak later on, and I thank them warmly also for the cooperation that they already started with European cities of Rotterdam and Vilnius. And I can only not forget to notice that WRI India and ICLEI Southeast Asia are also in these sessions, because they are long-standing partners at the global level, but also in India to the work we do on cities. This is particularly important for me today to participate with you, because we are about to launch the second phase of our global cooperation programs on urban actions. We launched them at a very specific time. I take my cue also from the previous speakers. We said we are entering a decade of oriented actions. It's about actions rather than sort of overarching policies, and our goal and our objectives nowadays are really to transform those into concrete things and tangible things that can make us move forward in the sustainable transformation of cities. Whilst, of course, today the main priority remains overcoming and getting out of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have a very strong framework, I think, of multilateral agreements, such as the Paris Climate Change Agreement, the Sustainable Development Agenda for 2030, the new Global Urban Agenda also, that give us very clear, I think, orientations as to what should be happening in terms of the transformation of our economies, of our societies, towards something more sustainable. So although we have a lot of questions, I think a lot of things have been laid out. In Europe last year, and allow me to speak just a little bit about what we do in Europe and how we see things at the moment. In Europe last year, we were faced with a strong imperative, both due to the climate pressure, the climate change pressure, and to the COVID-19, which basically, I think, has pushed us faster in rethinking and having to rethink how we do things, how we live, how we plan to live in the future, and take very ambitious actions as to how we can curb it all. I was still a little bit parts from the previous two speakers. I think we don't have an option B, we have an option A, and we have to live with this and do something about it. The European Green Deal is of course focused on Europe, but Europe is a global actor that does not just work for itself, it works in connection with the rest of the world. And in this sense, it takes very seriously also how it can partner and scale up at the global level with ambitious partners such as India on how to transform these economies. The European Green Deal is really our goal for 2050 to reduce climate emissions, to achieve net zero emissions actually in the urban territory, and to transform all sectors of the economy, whether it is by investing in new technologies and changing consumption and production patterns, in supporting industries to innovate. We also, of course, look at renewable energies, decarbonizing the cities from the energy sectors to how buildings are supposed to be more efficient, and of course, big overarching economic sort of goals such as circular economy, sustainable and environmentally friendly trade, also decent work and sustainable trade along the supply chains are all things that are quite important for us. I think we all know that the challenge today is in cities. More than half of the world's population lives in cities. The migration from the rural areas to the urban areas is still ongoing, and it's only growing. We all have quite high urban densities and with this an array of problems that cities face in general to make sure that our citizens are safe, that they can be included within the life of the cities, and that they enjoy basically access to basic services, whether it's from education and now health systems that need to be strengthened also. In this sense, we are faced with this question: how do we all work together? How do we make sure that our citizens enjoy all those basic rights and services in order to prosper, and how cities, which are the engines of our economies, basically can move forward and develop further? Part of the answers are here and there. I think there's a lot of examples. There's a lot of good practices that have been put together across the world. And this is why when in 2015, the EU pledged to implement the Paris Agreement, the Global Urban Agenda, also the SDGs, now with the European Green Deal, we also thought of what can we concretely do to make sure that this is not just something that will be a case within Europe, but that we can move forward and also draw from each other's strength, let's say, and each other's experiences in moving all together in this big challenge that is the sustainable transformation of our societies. In 2015, we launched the EU's International Urban Cooperation Program. Today, there are about 150 cities across the world that take part in this program. There are 11 cities which paired up with another 11 European cities. I have to praise and commend the good work that has been happening, for example, between Surat and Rotterdam, on tackling the challenges linked to rainwater. The cities of Kochi and Vilnius also working on solid waste, for example. I know that Panaji and Dubrovnik have been working on things that are more futuristic in a way, which is smart parking pilot project towards smart cities and smarter environments. And this cooperation for us is actually very important, not only because we want to share our experiences from Europe in tackling those different effects of climate change and how to transform sustainably, but also we want to draw from the experiences of India, which face different challenges or have looked at it differently. And this is how we believe that through cooperation and solidarity, we can really have the best shot at tackling the sort of negative effects of those pandemics or climate changes. A second initiative, which I also believe is very important and it has garnered a lot of attention, is the Global Covenant of Mayors for Energy and Climate. It is today the biggest alliance of cities that are committed to tackle climate change at the local level. It has more than 10,000 cities. So far, there are 22 cities members of the GCOM in India. And we have very interesting and strong experiences that are coming out of that commitment. For example, in the state of Gujarat, which is engaging 8 cities to really develop climate action plans, but based on science, meaning that they're not just doing it on paper, but they're thinking of scientifically, is this going to work? Those kind of alliances, for me, are really how we can make things concrete, because there's a wealth of knowledge that is there available. I think all of us have worked extensively on research in different fields and sectors. There's a myriad of literature around things, but really how we can make it real, how we put it into practice, how we transform those plans from paper to physical infrastructures or schemes is the challenge. And I think by joining forces, exchanging, discussing like we do today, seeing what experiences have worked, but also what has failed somewhere else, is how we can really move forward and build together this better transformation, or a sustainable transformation that fits for our cities and our citizens. I will not be too much longer. I think I want to finish with a quote. I think we have already a political commitment on the EU and from EU and India at the higher level. There's a number of partnerships and agreements that have been signed, the latest of which is our EU-India strategic partnership. Those give us, of course, the political will and commitment to work together. It is now up to us, practitioners, to get together and pull up our sleeves a little bit and really see what works. I think this will be my words of encouragement to all of us, research institutes, local governments, practitioners, but also the more technical people, urban architects, engineers, to work together in what we call those multi-stakeholder approaches, holistic approaches, multi-level governance, and really think of who is at the center of everything that we try to design, right? For me, it is the citizen, it is the person who every day has to wake up and go to work and deal with the enormous challenges that it implies. And those are the people that we have those are the people that we have to address, and those people that we have to help to move into the future, right? And along this, of course, because they're the ones who contribute to the economy, they're the ones that help us stay safe and move forward. There is a famous quote among people who work in the urban field in Europe by an ancient Greek philosopher called Socrates. I don't know if he said it or not, but he's claimed to have said that by far the greatest and most admirable form of wisdom is that needed to plan and beautify cities and human communities. We're all today citizens. We all have a responsibility to make our environment a little better. So I think today for me, and from the place that I hold and I sit, which is my job that I love very much, to work on urban cooperation and think how cities will look like in 2030, in 2050. I am very curious and interested and happy to be able to share here with you what we could do together and how we can rethink those policies for sustainable transformation of our cities and environments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for elaborating on the role of global partnerships and collaborations in addressing urbanization challenges and guiding local actions. I would now like to invite Mr. Jostin Nygaard, Senior Environmental Specialist at the World Bank, and Dr. Michael Bucke, Head of Section, Counselor, Delegation of the European Union to India, for a joint presentation. Mr. Nygaard has developed and implemented some of the largest air quality and pollution management programs of the World Bank. Mr. Bucke at EU leads the section responsible for dialogue and cooperation between the EU and India in areas of environment, mobility, urbanization and smart cities, as well as the EU's foreign policy instrument. Requesting sir to please go ahead with the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we are pleased really to participate in this World Sustainable Development Symposium here. We have participated over several years and really appreciate to be part of your efforts and arrangements here from your side, Terry. And we also really appreciate to do this presentation here, short though, with the co-arranger for this session here with our good colleagues in the European Union, which we have worked extensively together with on these subjects. So what we would like to somehow highlight here is that, yes, cities are critical, and we fully share what you emphasize, Dr. Hitesh, that cities are really working. And we can see a lot of really good air quality management being achieved within the cities, and we will give some examples for them. At the same time, cities also have some challenges in being able to plan for a sustainable future and implement them for achieving a sustainable future, also because they are part of larger environments, and in this context what we are referred to as airshed management or airshed settings, and then a management in order to be able to manage these larger settings. So please, next slide. Yeah, so in our institution, we are basically focusing on both approaches here, both the overall support to sustainable city development, where we have three critical programs. We are referring to them as the Global Smart Citizens Program. We have Smart Cities initiatives, and we have also city resilience programs that work on the overall sustainable development planning. And in these programs, we are addressing all the critical sectors like transport, energy, industries, urban construction, the municipal, the waste subject, and so on. So all bring them together in a sustainable development planning process, and also to lead into the investments that we are doing. Now, more specifically, we have also a large number of programs where we are focusing on air quality management in the cities. We have programs in Vietnam, Mexico, Cairo, in around Beijing. We have in Johannesburg, South Africa. We now have an increasing engagement in India and other parts of the South Asia too. So I would say a dozen plus very active programs on air quality management as part of the overall sustainable development efforts we have. And to reiterate here, with today's knowledge, when we refer to knowledge here, and the importance of setting targets, what I think was also emphasized earlier on here was the kind of outcome planning, the importance of this. And this we see being the critical part in air quality management for cities and surrounded areas, to set targets, and then you work as hard you can in order to reach the targets over the next 5 years. India is doing a good job with the National Clean Air Program, and so on. So if we take the cases here of very successful air quality management plan that we have been involved in Beijing, substantive improvements over 5 years, Ulaanbaatar over 6 years, Bangkok over a little bit more, 10 years, but that happened much earlier. And the Seoul example here is more as it had been a reference case for many air quality management programs. So I think the main message here is really that with today's knowledge, that you have a profession, you have a knowledge where you can set targets, you understand the sources, and you can implement them effectively. And in this case, you will reach the targets. You will reach the outcomes that you have planned to reach. And in the cases of Beijing and Ulaanbaatar here, they achieve more or less exactly spot on what was planned 5, 6, 7 years earlier. So just to have this, keep this in mind. Please, next. The next slide, yeah, thank you. Thank you. So we have started to somehow do some of these mapping together with our good Indian colleagues here. So basically what we begin to see on the left-hand side here is the various airsheds that we begin to see in India, and also the wider in the South Asian context. And we go to the next photo there. What we see here is basically an overlayer of the pollution concentration, so PM 2.5, within the typography in the Indo-Gangetic Plain. And then the names you see are the names of the cities with more than 1 million people in part of Uttar Pradesh, going up to the National Capital Region, and so on. And what you basically see is that the cities are basically trapped into very high concentrations of PM2.5. So it's very hard for them to plan and achieve sustainable long-term outputs unless you are planning over a larger geographic areas, and in this case the airshed. If you go into the Kanpur example here, you will see here the various sources. You see the total Kanpur concentration levels to the right here from various sources like household, transport, industry, energy, power plants, agriculture, and so on. And when you go to the left, you see that inside the cities, that you have the second bar there from the right, that's what is originated within the city. You go to the next one, that is what originated in the state, in this case Ulaanbaatar, and then further to the wider area of state. So you can see that the city itself can only manage, in this case, probably around 30% of the sources that causes the lice concentration. So that's why we say it's very critical here to be able, you do smart city planning, but you also need to do it on the wider scale. And what we really can see also with the good efforts now in India is that through the 15th Finance Commission, you are focusing the funds on the larger cities and the urban agglomerations surrounding the cities. You have the new Commission on Air Quality Management for the National Capital Region and the adjoining areas, which goes wider into an airshed context, and the same with the vision to 2030 with the Central Pollution Control Board. So it's being worked into the planning process. Next, please. The next slide. So what we want to do here now, next slide, please. Yeah, so we want to do here is to run you through a couple of experiences where they have gone through this process extensively. So what they realized in California, which is about 2/3 of the geographic area of the Indo-Gangetic Plain on the Indian side, the authorities in San Francisco and Los Angeles realized that they could not control the pollution sources within their respective city jurisdictions. So what they did was that they started for about 40 years ago to basically begin to have the districts, similar to the Indian districts, to begin to collaborate to control all the sources of what they referred to as the mobile sources. So from that kind of bottom-up approach, they then realized they had to divide the whole state into 15 air basins, and then also arrange within these 15 air basins 35 so-called air districts in order to be able to manage the air quality within each of the districts, and then also have a collaboration between the districts, the air districts within the air basins. So they set up these functions, they had standard monitoring program, they did cost effectiveness of the abatement scenarios, the AQM research, and so on. And so the state level then regulate the mobile sources, while the air districts, because they are more localized, regulate the stationary sources. And then they set up an extensive legal setup with courts that settle all the disputes. So they got a lot of income from the disputes, and about 1/3 of these sources goes to the low income areas, which I think is a very interesting approach here. Please, the next slide. So Okay, I understand we have to complete the presentation here. So,
Sir, hello, sir. Honorable Commissioner has another meeting. So, can we resume the session after that? Resume the presentation after that? Is that okay?
absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I would now like to request Mr. Banchanidhi Pani, IAS, Commissioner of the Surat Municipal Commissioner, Gujarat, to present a brief on different sustainability initiatives that are being implemented by Surat. Mr. Pani is also the chairman of the Surat Smart City Development Limited. He is an IS of 2005 batch with extensive experience in various leadership roles across Gujarat. Requesting Mehul to please share the presentation. Sir, I invite you to the platform.
I think he's muted. Can you request him
Honorable
to?
sir, I think the mic is muted. Can you please check?
Out there.
Sir, you can please go ahead with the presentation. We can hear you. Welcome, sir.
So, am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
You're audible, but I think there are other appliances which are probably playing in your room, which is causing an echo to happen. So if you could mute the others and use one, I think that will help.
Yes, that is already muted. Now echo is not coming, I suppose.
Yeah, now it's fine. Thank you.
So great, thank you very much. So I apologize for coming straight and giving this presentation. In fact, Surat, the experience of Surat has been the city of a city which all of you know was having many problems in the past. There was flood in the past. There was a plague in the past, and because of many things, the city has been one of the most important cities as far as resilience is concerned. We have been able from the dirtiest city of the country to become the second cleanest city of India. Apart from these issues, there are many other things which we have been able to do. In fact, there are whether urbanization, if you see, it is a breed city. It is a city which is having a lot of development now. It is the fastest developing cities in the world. It is also one of the cities which is taking a lot of innovative steps as far as the entire development strategy is concerned. There are a lot of partnerships that we are doing with many other agencies, multilateral agencies, whether it is ICLEI, whether it is WRI, whether it is IUC, whether it is with Rotterdam city, whether it is with other cities. In fact, there are a lot of initiatives which are being done by Surat. I will just mention some of the initiatives, particularly related to air quality management, particularly related to climate change. And there are other also issues, for example, this flood management. We have seen the worst flood situation in 1968 and 2006. And after that, a lot of things have changed, and there is a real-time monitoring, as well as now another challenge which was there for the city of Surat as far as Tapi River is concerned is the dirty water, the sewage water coming in, that is now stopped. It is almost 1,000 crore project which has been undertaken in the city of Surat. We have the longest BRTS in the country. We have the longest BRTS, and entire BRTS is completely green corridor. We are one city which is getting almost more than 140 crore for revenue generation from the sewage water. It is one of the model cities. So basically, whether it is solid waste management or liquid waste management, Surat has set the standard. Now we have gone for to promote environment friendly transportation, non motorized transportation system. We have introduced PBS system, public bicycle sharing system, pedestrian friendly street designs in the city of Surat. Now there are a lot of design changes that we have introduced, particularly for cycle and pedestrian street designs. This COVID-19, we have seen that Surat and other big cities in the country, we have faced the migration problem, and how to check that. So we have had partnerships with many other organizations in the country, including NIUA, which in fact is this presentation, I suppose, is not visible from here. So તમે શેર કરો છો presentation, તમે શેર કરો છો?
Yeah, the slides are actually not moving ahead. So Adishri, would you like to share the screen so that, or can you move the slides so that the commissioner can speak using the appropriate slides?
Yes, sir. Adishri is sharing the screen. Commissioner, sir, if that is okay.
So we will move the slides here. I think it'll be easier for him then. Okay. Yeah.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, I would now request you to unmute the mic, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next slide. I think it is not happening from there also. Fine. So there is a lag time. We have already discussed about the partnerships that we have with European Union, IUC, the GCOM, the COMG. I think this is earlier in 2006, before 2006. Surat has been at next slide, please. Thank you. So earlier it was a reactive kind of response to full screen. So I think full screen mode, is it possible from there? Okay. Am I audible there?
Yes, sir. Just give me a second, sir. So is it visible now?
No,
Yeah,
it
this is
is.
full screen. It is full
You know,
screen.
some.
It is fine.
So 2006 and before it was reactive, but now it is a proactive approach, whether it is related to disaster or it is related to sustainability as far as project levels are concerned. There are many coordination the city is doing for disaster mitigation. There are many partnerships that we are involved with other cities of the world, and there are many multilateral agencies that we are coordinating with. Next. So major, we can see that there is a proactive city administration that we are seeing. The city, if you see the challenges that we faced, whether it was crisis recovery, uh, or labor migration, forced displacement, there are a lot of challenges that we faced. There are, development versus environment challenge. There were many human resources challenge. There are many issues related to industries also. Next, these challenges were faced, and we have been able to have a sustainable growth strategy of Surat city. I have already discussed about there are many solutions. For example, earlier before 2014, there was no transportation system at all. Now we have 300 electric buses. We have 800 other buses. So basically now the transportation system is able to contribute to a better climate resilient strategy. Tertiary treated water, and we are selling it. So we have already done this, and we are getting a sustainable solution to the sewage problem of the city. That is a model city in the country. I have already discussed about the cycle and pedestrian friendly initiatives. Diamond and textile industries management has been very proactive. Now Surat Metro is launched. There will be one will be textile corridor, and one will be diamond corridor, so that a lot of pollution which is happening because of individual transportation system, that will be changing to the public transportation system. Labor migration, we have created a cell, and there are a lot of climate resilient initiatives like ecological site at Khajod. We have closed the landfill site, and there is a beautiful ecological site out there. Surat Diamond Bourse, these instead of having all the diamond industrial units scattered in the city, we are having a Surat Diamond Bourse, which will be the biggest, the largest office building in the entire world. There are many sustainable transportation initiatives we are doing. We are also for future, the water situation should not worsen, so we are creating another barrage which will have a storage of water till 2050. That plan is already underway. Metro rail, I have already spoken. Next. So there are a lot of other initiatives also, like Water Plaza. Can we go to yes, Water Plaza? We are having a Surat Rotterdam partnership out here. These water plazas will not only act as flood resilient strategy, because this will connect the extra water during rainy season, during flood time, to carry them out into the stormwater drainage systems of the city. So that initiative we are doing with Rotterdam, and we have named it as Khelkund. Next. This water plaza is going to create is an integral part of the entire riverfront management of River Tapi. Can we go to the next slide? Yes. So yes. So whether it is water harvesting or water treatment, the entire Tapi River, as you can see, the resilient Surat logo, the entire Tapi River is going through the city of Surat, almost 85 kilometers, and first is to rejuvenate the river Tapi. Second is to create a riverfront. So it is not only an engineering but also an ecological initiative in the city of Surat, because there are many components like water plaza, which will be an entertainment zone, but also a flood resilient structure. So there are a lot of initiatives like this that we are undertaking. Can we go to the next slide, please? And the Tapi River, all the 44 outlets which are going, sewage water is going into Tapi River, that will be completely stopped. And we are delighted that the fund that we are receiving, almost 60% of it is from the central government, 20% from the state, and 20% is being contributed by Surat Municipal Corporation. So water plaza is very, very important, because Surat, like the city of Mumbai, has a lot of Ganesh Chaturthi and other idol immersion that generally happens in the river, which we are stopping. Almost more than 3 lakh idol immersion is being stopped now. This water plaza will also create a kind of water harvesting structure, and when other than the rainy season, these water plazas will contribute as the points where children can play, people can have inclusivity, can happen, social cohesion will be ensured through these water plazas. So these water plazas we are doing with the city of Rotterdam. Next slide, please. So there we are undertaking these initiatives overall, and next slide, please. Yes, this is how the view would be of a water plaza. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we can see that in the city of Surat, how sustainable growth, sustainable development strategy we have ensured, and all the cities in the country, we are struggling for sewage water. Can we go to the next slide, please? We are struggling, whether it is sewage water is concerned, solid waste management is concerned, air pollution is concerned. I must tell you that air pollution or climate change, 52% of the emission contributes for the air pollution in the city of Surat. The most important reason is the emission from the industries, and we have ensured a partnership with GPCB, with JPAL, Mr. Chatterjee. We have ensured that this a cap is there, and this cap is ensuring that whatever is more so am I audible? It says, am I audible out there?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
So there are many challenges. We have seen that non-inclusive growth is not sustainable, and we have learned our lessons right, and we have ensured that vulnerability, whether it is affordable housing and slum upgradation, I must tell, earlier 20% of the city was living in slums. Now in the city we have only 6% people who are living. Surat is the only city in the country which has taken up this affordable rental housing program for the migrant laborers, and now we are giving a respectable, dignified life to the migrant laborers by creating affordable housing for them, which is not fixed but a rental and a dynamic plan. Surat is the first city to do that. Accessible, equitable access to health is a priority. The number of public health centers, the number of, Surat is the only city which has a vector-borne controlled disease program, which is a parallel program. During COVID-19, we have been able to handle the entire COVID-19 situation well because of the health infrastructure that we have inculcated over the years, particularly after the plague. We have seen that green urban future is possible. We are already started the biodiversity park, which is around 68 hectares. It is one of the biggest biodiversity parks in the country. All the creeks are bad. All the creeks are places of solid waste dump sites, liquid waste dump sites, illegal activities, antisocial activities. That is stopped because now we have made entire creek as the biodiversity park of the city, and the work has already been started. We are taking the help of cities program of European Union, France, French government, and other countries also. So that is happening. Accelerated digitization is one that we have taken off very early in the city of Surat. Whether it is water, sanitation, waste collection, or electricity, everywhere there is a transition in the city towards a better future. We have been able to take the help of communities, whether it is COVID-19, whether any disaster. Fortunately, recently, we have also received the NetExplo UNESCO Award for the best resilient city in the world because of our involvement with the communities, local actors. All the stakeholders are associated with any project that we are doing, whether it is riverfront, whether it is any climate change strategy or design changes that we are doing. Everything is having involvement of the people. For example, this biodiversity park also, the local nearby people were living an extremely worse lifestyle. Now it has changed to a better living condition. So there are many innovative solutions that we have undertaken by involving the local people and our partnerships with many agencies. And we have taken a lot of steps so that economic implications are also taken into account, so that our strategies are sustainable strategies rather than quick fixes. So because of these long-term strategies, we have been able to do whatever we have been able to do. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I must thank European Union, Terry, and all of you for giving us the opportunity for Surat Municipal Corporation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for giving us an overview on how cities can adopt sustainable approaches to address different urbanization challenges. We apologize everyone for the lags that are occurring in the platform. We would now request Mr. Jostin Nygaard and Dr. Buki to please resume the presentation. I would be sharing the screen. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I was actually on my second last slide, so if you could just move forward, yes, move forward, yes, move to the next one. That's my last slide. So the examples we gave first, was in country airsheds and the importance for developing the airshed management within the case we, for example, have gave with California, which we think are in many ways comparable to part of it, at least geographically, to the Indo-Gangetic Plain. Just to quickly mention another area with an international collaboration where the air pollution really is is being transported across large geographic areas, like here in the Southeast Asia, where I am located, where the so-called ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution has been developed over the last almost 20 years, where fires are tried to be managed through this agreement, where all the countries in the regions here have been, signing and ratified the agreement over about a 15 years period. So we see this as a good example where countries are coming together and at least start discussing, setting targets, and begin to collaborate. So just as a reference, we have other more effective probably experiences in the overall air convention area. And I would like to hand over to our colleague here, Michel Mouchiroud, for going over to the EU examples that we are really pleased with. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Justin. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Many thanks to Terry for hosting this interesting session, and many thanks to the previous speakers for setting the Indian stage, the EU stage, the global stage, the local stage. I think we start to having a good perception of the diversity of issues and solutions. But now I'd like to take the floor and on behalf of my colleagues in the DG Environment in Brussels to dig a little deeper into the engine of the solutions that we have found and implemented in Europe the last 10 years. So without further ado, please move to the next slide. Yes, I will explain about the EU Clean Air Policy Framework. Here I need to say very clearly that I'm not an air quality expert. I'm not an Indian expert either. I've been based in Delhi for 6 months, but I could already realize the importance of air quality on well-being and health in India. My colleagues Suzanne and Camilla, respectively based in DG Environment in Brussels and in delegation in Delhi, have helped me put together those slides, and I'm very grateful for their help. So briefly, why it was so important for us to address the issue. We estimate that about 400,000 people die every year because of the bad air quality in Europe. And it, of course, carries on top of casualties a high burden of chronic disease, especially and disproportionately so with elderly or poor people. Today, or last year actually, 20%, a fifth of European citizens were still exposed to levels of air pollution that were above EU or WHO standards. So it's still a very high preoccupation, but it's twice better than it was just 10 years ago. So what we've put in place has been impactful. There are, on top of health issues, there are of course environmental impacts, in particular damages to ecosystems and crops or water, which leads to significant losses, economic losses for farmers. In total, the costs associated with bad air quality in Europe are 4 billion euro per year. It's 2 and 12 zeros in Indian rupees. It's absolutely gigantic numbers. So how did we address the issues? I think the two main tricks are first transparency. It starts with a very clear definition of the air unit, air monitoring and air management unit to be monitored. And the fact that this monitoring is done in a very transparent manner, that the information is made publicly available and updated on a regular basis by a specific independent agency. But the second trick is multi-level governance, as was already mentioned by Michel. the fact that not only you need to work at different levels of governance, but you also need to work across different levels of governance. In the case of EU, we have clean air forums every 2 years where we gather the whole of EU and different types of participants, including, of course, all the relevant ministries, but also cities and regional authorities, civil society organization, industry association, and academia. We also have bilateral dialogues between the Commission, the executive body of the European Union, and individual member states. There can be mandatory cross-border consultations, meaning consultation between one member state and its neighbors on a specific problem and mandatory exchange of information. And of course, beyond EU, on the pan-continental level, we have the UN Economic Commission for Europe with 56 members that are discussing international cooperation in the field of air quality. Next slide, please. So that's a picture of EU. We have 27 member states. It's not unlike the 29 states and 4 union territories in India, with all their diversity in terms of size, population density, and sources of air pollutant, depending on industrial or agricultural activities. So that's the situation. That's the whole diversity of the European Union across all its member states. And if you go to the next slide, that's how we look at it from an information perspective. You have in front of you 400,000 monitoring stations, which are each attached to a given zone. The zones are defined by the member states. Usually they are defined by, together with administrative units, but there are certain rules that if a zone has a very high population, above 250,000 people, or it has a population density higher than a certain threshold, then it's identified as an agglomeration. And so this information is collected, processed, and reported by the environmental agency of the European Union. Next slide, please. This monitoring and governance framework is underpinned by a regulatory framework, of course, which is in basically 3 parts. The first one is the ambient air quality directives that are set by the Commission. It gives general targets that the member states have to converge to, but it also sets a framework for monitoring and modeling, as I already explained. And then after this directive, so the general goals to be achieved is set, the member states can provide national emission reduction commitments, where they explain their own reporting obligation, how they meet the reporting obligation, and provide annual emission inventories. In addition to this EU/member states division of work, there are source-specific emission standards and disclosure per sector for industrial emissions, for medium combustion plants, for eco-design, energy efficiency, fuel standard in the transport sector, and a register of pollutant release and transfer. So by addressing both the hotspots, the background diffuse pollution, agricultural emission, we come to a comprehensive and transparent approach, which we believe is key to design the most efficient response and proportionate measures that are then perceived as legitimate by the population at large and by the citizens. So they are supported in the long run. I think that's in a very short couple of slides the core philosophy of the clean air policy framework in Europe. Thank you very much once again for the opportunity, and I wish you a nice afternoon and look forward for the rest of the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Nygaard and Dr. Bukhi, for elaborating on the innovative airshed approach to managing air pollution in cities and briefing us on the EU Clean Air Policy Framework. I now regret to inform you that Mr. Anil Kumar, the Mayor of Kochi, would be unable to join us as he has some engagements. We would now conclude this session, and I thank all the speakers for their inputs. For those of you who may have joined us for this thematic track, the thematic track focuses on planning cities for a sustainable future. Building on the previous discussions, we now move towards the panel discussion, which will be followed by a Q&A between the panelists and the delegates. I request all delegates to please share their questions in the Q&A tab of their screen, which will be brought up by the moderator after the panel discussion concludes. Delegates also have the option to answer a few poll questions related to the session at the resource center of the Keystone platform. The esteemed moderator for the panel discussion is Ms. Camilla Christensen Rai, Councillor Delegation of the European Union to India. Ms. Christensen Rai is working on partnership on smart and sustainable urbanization between EU and India and on the EU-India water partnership and air quality management. She has previously worked as the Councillor for Urban Development at the Royal Danish Embassy. On the panel today, we have many accomplished speakers representing leading organizations that are supporting sustainable planning in cities. Please give me a small wave if possible when I mention your names. Ms. Sriparna Iyer, Key Expert EU-India Partnership Support Project, consortium led by AETS with IP Global and KPMG. Ms. Parul Agarwala, Country Program Manager for UN Habitat India. Ms. Vaishali Nandan, Project Director, GIZ India. Mr. Imani Kumar, Executive Director, ICLEI South Asia. Ms. Rupali Deshmukh, Senior Coordinator, Business Development and Marketing, IVL, Swedish Environment Research Institute. Thank you all. May I now request Ms. Christensen Rai to please provide a few remarks and take the discussion forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here in the panel today. And so what I want to say before we start the panel is that the COVID-19 has made us stop up and think how we can plan our cities for a sustainable future. And this is what we will do today. We will stop up together with our panel, together with our audience. And I thank you for being here in this virtual hall. We want to hear from our audience, as was also mentioned just now. So kindly send us your comments, your questions, or other inputs you may have in order to look at how we can plan our cities for a sustainable future and what that must contain. In the session here, we have two themes of questions. So the first one is how and to what extent a holistic planning approach will impact cities' contributions to a sustainable future. And the second is, what are the possible ways ahead towards a sustainable future? So I would like to invite Ms. Iyer to give us some of her feedback or reflection on the question, which is what elements must a holistic planning approach consist of and why? So kindly Ms. Iyer, which is the key expert of our EU Urban Partnership Support Project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me for this panel discussion. Just as everybody has been talking about the need to look at the way we manage and plan our cities, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to put together, esteemed specialists and practitioners to discuss this theme. Now, planning approaches traditionally don't pay sufficient attention to sustainable outcomes. So the approach has always been working in silos, believing that all resources, including natural resources, can be compartmentalized. But I think the climate impacts and especially the ongoing pandemic has served to drive home the fact that perhaps we need to look at the way that we approach planning. So most interestingly, as part of this ongoing India-EU Urban Partnership Project, we have just completed a technical study for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which is to look at how can we mainstream resilience into urban planning practice in India. And this basically looked at the URDPFI guidelines, which form the basis of all planning norms in the country. So the URDPFI guidelines as well as the model building bylaws. And we looked at some areas which needed to be re-emphasized while we look at improving physical planning. So so we think that these guidelines, if they are strictly followed, it's nothing new. I mean, what we are trying to say is nothing new. The URDPFI guidelines did talk about sustainable planning and putting environment at the center of all development. But what we think needs to be done is to re-emphasize these particularly more. The other point that I'd like to make over here is that cities will continue to grow. So no matter what happens, they continue to grow. And I think that while the pandemic has served to make people focus more on distribution of infrastructure, we think that the planning guidelines, and particularly where you place your social infrastructure going forward, is going to be more important. And there is a lot being said globally about the 15-minute city, 30-minute city. All of this is just emphasizing the fact that you need to have access, easier access. And also, one of the earlier speakers talked about these containment zones, etc. So again, if you plan your cities in ways that basic infrastructure is easily accessible, it is going to be perhaps easier to isolate these pockets of disturbance or higher levels of contamination. And the final point that I'd like to make over here is that while physical planning is important, it is governance. It is the way that people have come together to respond to the pandemic that really needs to be loaded. And I think one of the best examples we have is the way Dharavi in Mumbai has been able to manage the COVID crisis. And also, I think I cannot sort of not bring up the havoc caused by the migrants and the whole migrant issue. I think that has served to highlight a point which Hitesh made earlier, that the government was looking at local economic development and reskilling. And I think these are important examples. There are a lot of examples. I have worked on other projects where we've done local economic development strategies for cities, where the definition of a city is not the administrative unit, but the city region, looking at the resources available and what sorts of opportunities can be made available. So I think that it's going to be a combination of physical planning, governance, as well as working more with other groups, communities. That is the way forward. So I think I'm just going to stop here now, and I'll wait to take questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Aya. Thank you very much. So as you mentioned, the moving away from working in the silos and more maybe in an integrated work approach, the importance of what the guidelines says, but also the guidelines and the governance and the physical planning and the work between various groups. And that's maybe also I will then mention, thank you very much for the comment from Ms. Lina. So the comment is that how citizens can participate for a sustainable future, and without their support, we cannot succeed. Well in line, or as was also said from Ms. Aya's side, the importance of working together. Now I will invite the next speaker in our panel, Ms. Agarwala, Country Program Manager of UN Habitat India. And the question I would like to give here is that how can cities contribute to national or state level policy promoting a sustainable future? And please also give us a few examples. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Camilla. And I would also like to thank Terry for organizing this summit at a very timely, occasion. So a very pertinent question, and as has been reflected by speakers before me, we do need a paradigm shift in the way we do planning, and not just planning, but also how to see develop a symbiotic relationship and synergies between both planning and management of cities. We see it in the way the city structures at the ULPs are organized. We have municipal corporations that function towards providing urban services. And we have the development authorities that do the urban planning work. So there is definitely a need at the local levels to build more synergies here, and to see how what are those paradigm shifts that we can think of that would strengthen this link that goes from the grassroots level. Look at the learnings from the cities that would then influence national policies. So a lot of emphasis through UN Habitat's, various forums, especially that came out in 2016 at the Quito, was cities are central to the urbanization and the urban agenda. A lot of focus on local implementation and local financing of initiatives. And one of the areas, one of the big missing pieces in the way the urbanization is taking place is that there is a large gap in the evidence base. So there are, while there are a lot of initiatives at the central level to look at, to strengthen the data systems, we need to see understand what's going on at the city level at the grassroots. Within their boundaries, and then use those learnings, because one of the things that we have seen very clearly during COVID is the amount of innovations, use of technology that the cities have been able to use, and now it's a matter of linking it up to the national policies. So the new urban agenda provides a very good framework in this, where while on one hand there are systems and processes in place to look at how master planning of the cities can be made more better through a collection of data, through the and then tying it to the voluntary local reviews that are getting a lot more popular, and then building that into the national narrative when the cities are compiling their the national reviews on of the sustainable development goals. And here I would like to emphasize 2 points that were also discussed before in the context of India. Within the planning framework, we recognize that there is a need to look at it more strategically. But I also, from working in the country over the last few years, have realized, I was thinking that the reason why we do our master planning exercises once in 20 years, which is, even though the master plans are a statutory documents, is because there is no motivation for cities to go back and relook and refine. They don't have any new data that's coming up for them to see what those dynamic on ground changes are occurring. And so with that, one of the initiatives that we are doing are working with MOSPI and the ministry to see how we can revisit the national sample surveys, because also in the interest of understanding and recognizing the strengths of different ministries. So to again try to steer their interest also to work together in this initiative towards data collection, while also exploring other opportunities of AI and big data, and then capacitating not just the national level, the ministry, but also now engaging with the states, which have the mandate for urban in India, and encouraging them to look beyond just the financial allocation, but start working a lot more towards providing the technical know-how and the technical knowledge, and looking at giving it a more subnational, regional perspective to the urban development, because all of it ties to a more holistic urban planning frameworks as well, like Sriparna was mentioning. The local economic development plans also go beyond boundaries, and when we talk about agglomeration economies, it's also a matter of looking at system of cities, which also mean that in this effort towards a bottom-up approach, we also need to make that important connection at the state urban departments as well. So in the interest of time, I'll just stop here and look forward to continuing the discussion. Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your response, and also highlighting the need for the local implementation, the need for the data use into the planning process, and also mentioning the bottom-up approach, as well as the state and of course cities' role as well. And maybe also what I would mention here is that from UN Habitat in 2020 there was the World Cities Report on the value of sustainable urbanization, which really also is a really important input in terms of the economic, environment, social, and other ways of valuing cities. So I'll bring in a comment here from Sri Devi Rao. Thank you very much for the comment. And the comment is on the importance of providing more green spaces, public open spaces in the cities, which contribute to the way of living in the cities, the recreation for people, for the persons living in the cities. And so thank you very much for the comment. Now we will go to our next panelist from GIZ, Project Director GIZ, Ms. Nandan. So here I have one question. It is, what are the possible ways ahead towards a sustainable future? And kindly also elaborate on a few initiatives. You may touch also upon maybe solid waste management or other sectors. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, and I probably also want to thank Terry for inviting me as a panelist. So taking your question, and what are the kind of strategies that actually could be put then on the ground by various cities. So as part of one of the projects that I'm looking after, Climate Smart Cities, I would like to throw some light on how we are helping the cities put things then on the ground. One of the aspects I would like to highlight is waste management, but the other is also urban green. And we are actually using urban design thinking methodologies on trying to build the cities. What should you say? It's the capacities, but also to make them understand that it's not only one aspect that you are looking at, but everything that's eventually interconnected. So in the same way, if you look at waste management, so it's not only one aspect that you are looking at, but it's again interconnected. Why I will say, it's interconnected is if you look at construction, demolition, waste management, the waste, if it's dumped, would encroach on your water bodies. The waste, if not utilized, would cause an issue of landfills. But what really, if you put it all then together, would maybe solve your issue then on the ground. So we are helping the cities of Bhubaneswar, Coimbatore, and Kochi in actually looking at their processes on how to improve their construction demolition waste management, and also Kochi, where we are helping them with solid waste management. From the urban design thinking methodology perspective, also it's all about trying to make the city understand that it's not really just one thing in a silo, and that's something that I think we really need to understand and convey more and more. This is something that has also been really emphasized coming. I would not say we are really out of the pandemic still. Yeah, we are still there. It's very much a thing in our faces, which also means that it's just important for us to remember that it's not only one thing that will help us solve the issue. It has to be holistic. It has to be together. So if I talk about urban green, if I talk about the blue spaces in the city, the waste management in the city, eventually they are all connected, and they would all connect back if only and only if we were able to do our planning processes properly. This is something that we have been trying to connect in the city of Kochi, where we have been trying to help with the master planning process. However, that process, it's a slow process, but if it's lived, if it's really, where there's one common vision, where the city has the vision, but also has a focus wherein we take it forward. So instead of looking at our silo of, various the green or the waste or the water, if we looked at the entire process together, and that's the way eventually the city really runs. The kind of skill that you need, the kind of the school children who would take it forward, the citizens would come forward. So eventually, if you clean up a waste dump, what would you do? You might get your water back. You might get your the clean water back in the ground. You will have a green area in that space. It's all actually just one box that we have unfortunately put as silos differently. With this, I would also just want to introduce one more aspect that we have been working at the national level with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which is the Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework. We started this exercise with the ministry. Hitesh Vaidya from NIUA mentioned it. Also with NIUA, and of course, I think most of the organizations present today were then part of it. There were 26 on board. They still continue to be there. And this is one holistic exercise which also not only helps, provides a direction of saying it's an assessment of where you are today, but also provides a direction where the city should go. There are various kinds of plans in it for various kinds of sectors. But if you put them all together, it's eventually one plan. And you are all talking about climate resilience, climate low carbon cities, eventually talking about strengthening the city and taking it all forward. But I would like to stop here, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for also sharing with us the importance of looking at the aspects in the city in a holistic manner, in a togetherness, you can say, that it is connected, and we have to look at it as an integrated solution. Thank you. I will move on to our next panelist, Mr. Imani Kumar, Executive Director of ICLEI South Asia. So kindly give one question, which is urbanization presents a number of challenges as well as opportunities. To what extent are we able to plan cities for the future, or are we kind of struggling with challenges of the past and the present? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to thank Terry for giving me an opportunity. I was just wondering, I'm the only male person on the panel with the chair also a lady. It's a good or more gender balance than normal situation. Thanks, Sanjay ji, for creating this panel. So I'm privileged to be part of these lovely ladies here on the panel. just bringing that, I think the point, what the previous speakers have said, taking it further into the Indian cities, unless until you do a holistic planning, you cannot implement the activities on ground. I'm in this field for the last more than 25 years. I know how the cities were struggling previously, even during the last few months. During the pandemic, if city has not looked into a holistic planning, you cannot implement. Because the cities have been locked for the last 6-7 months. People are not moving. The materials are not moving from one place to another place, and all your daily essentials, if you need, you don't know where to get it from. Even the city administration, the commissioners were there, mayor was there on the panel, they don't know how to send that one actually. So we were started looking into the planning. Even if I talk about like transport planning, some of the comments are coming up. How do we take materials from one place to another place? What is the shortest route? How can we make available those materials? So this is one thing which has really asked by a lot of cities when we were started talking to them during the pandemic. And the other thing is about the waste. Actually, I think my previous speaker, Vaishali, expert in the waste, she was talking about. And how do we transport the COVID, the medical waste from even household to the hospitals or incinerators, or from hospitals to various other places. So unless until if you do a realistic, holistic planning with involvement of the public, I will say that is another important point which unfortunately most of the cities were not really looking into. But now they realize that actually, even though our smart cities program is happening for the last 6-7 years, cities are now really realize that we need to involve the public, we need to involve all the stakeholders along with a holistic plan actually. So that's one point I just want to make it. And another one, maybe I'll just give 2-3 examples. Like we were working since last almost 10-12 years creating holistic waste management plans or urban resilience plans within the city. And last 6-7 years, thanks to support from GIZ and SDC, we're creating the climate resilient city action plans within the city, where we looked into all the transport, waste, housing, renewable energy, water supply, all the sectors together, along with creating an action plan so that all these plans are implemented on ground. How can they implement on ground? By actually taking a council resolution. So we first prepared an action plan and took a council resolution so that there is a buying from the council itself, the municipal council at the local government, and also allocation of the budget to that particular implementation of their action plan, so that the action plans can continue implementation on ground on that. So this particular exercise, we have done it, and the cities have now realized and they have started action implementing on ground on these things. And another example I just want to give is not only just taking the money, the budget from the local government, but we also looked into the public-private partnerships or the funding from other sources for the implementation on the ground. So for that, again, this particular holistic plan, involvement of the public and endorsement by the councils really helped the private people to come on forward and add money to implementation of these activities on ground, so that things can move further on ground on that. So I think unless until you do a holistic plan with involvement of the public, you cannot implement actions, and you cannot attract public private investment into the cities for the implementation of these actions. So I'll just stop here. I think this is the one point which I want to share with all others. Again, I just want to thank Terry for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and also for underlying that the holistic planning, but also that it must be together with the public, with the people in the city. So now I would like to invite Ms. Rupali, which is Senior Coordinator at IVL, Swedish Environmental Institute. And here I have a question, which is driving sustainable urbanization is, as we have also learned, a multi-sectoral, multi-departmental, multi-policy agenda. So what can cities do to bring these elements together in a holistic planning approach? Thank you.
Ms. Deshmukh, I think your mic is on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Camilla, and thank you, Terry, for inviting me for such a wonderful discussion. I think this is the time we should discuss this in detail. Anyways, coming back to Camilla's question, I would like to bring here the case study from Sweden. You know, Sweden is the world leader country with the environmental technologies and smart solution for sustainable city development. But, you know, like some year backs, the truth is that only 50 years ago, Sweden was also struggling with several environmental challenges. So let me share a few lessons we learned long way, and hopefully this can help India to have this transition to develop sustainable city quicker. And this also underlines SDG 17, Global Partnership for Sustainable Development. So coming back to Sweden's development, becoming most sustainable country, and in 2010, Stockholm was nominated for most green and sustainable city. And I am sitting there. Currently, I am in Stockholm, so I'm very proud about that. So there are the four factors which are important and responsible for a Swedish success story. That is eco-governance. So what is eco-governance? It is the holistic goal for the city planning, which not only touch one area of the city planning, but it brings everything together. You can say like landscape planning, urban functions, energy, water, traffic, transport, building, architect and infrastructure, and sewage and water. So these are very important, and it is an integrated approach of the different field of action coordinated and combined in the optimal way. It is important for any government or any organization to find a way to collaborate and cooperate between private and public sector, which has which can allow us to establish a long-lasting and sustainable city solution, which is very important to make city sustainable. And this can be a win-win situation for both citizens as well as municipalities and companies involved in this process. The success of eco-governance concept is depend on the government, how government can regulate the environment development policies and by using different taxes or bans. So this is very, very important, that how government handle this, or what type of governance you bring to handle this issue. The second point for the success story of Sweden is innovation. As in Sweden is known for the innovative solution. So we need to bring the innovative solution, and India has a tremendous talent in this area. Third one is, as earlier speaker also mentioned, that the involvement of citizens is very, very important to bring the change in a society. Educating our citizens to be a part of solution is very important. If you see in Sweden here, all the citizens or residents do recycling by taking it to the nearest center, and they spread knowledge, you know, like they educate their kids, and this sorting is not only for like a waste sorting, but it comes like they sort the clothes, and they think very sustainable way. So this type of capacity building, or this type of awareness, we have to bring it in Indian market. And this all you need to build a complex system solution which can optimize to give you the solutions for energy and resources for the sustainable city. What I would like to mention here again, so as we have this Hammarby model, where Hammarby is one area in Stockholm where we use a sludge for a biogas production, and we use that for a district heating, as Sweden is very cold country. So we like around 100,000 houses get the heating from those plants. So it is very, very important, like how you can bring this together and how you connect the dot and make your cities more sustainable, as COVID-19 has underlined the importance of why we need a sustainable city, why we need a recreational areas. And it is very much connected with the mental health. With this, I will take a pause and thank you so much.
So thank you very much. And thank you very much for mentioning the eco-governance, the importance of the innovation, the involvement of the citizens, and also the example from Hammervik on the sludge to energy with, and actually giving the heating to the households. So it will also now time to say thank you to all our panelists. Actually, I think we could have spent more time together, and maybe we can do this on another day, because there's many topics to talk on and ways to work together. And I want to I think from Mr. Hitesh Vaidya said in the beginning that we need to find a vaccine for the sustainable city. I think that's what we are doing. I think that's a very good picture of looking at what we're doing together. And now I will give over the word to Mr. Sanjay Seth also to say last word. Thank you.
I think in the interest of time, I would like to thank all the speakers for their excellent interventions. I think I wish that we had more time. We would have loved to sum up what each one of you said, and also probably take up a few questions. There were a couple of questions which I saw on the box, which people were wanting answers to. But in the interest of time, I think we lost some time while organizing ourselves in terms of presentation of slides and all of that. So we would need to close here. I, on behalf of TERI and the European Union, thank each one of you for coming together with us on this platform. And before we leave, I'd also like to remind you that there is a plenary session which is now going to take place, which is on Zero Carbon Future Makes Business Sense. And this is at the Pavagada. So I invite you all to join that session as well. And once again, thank you for making yourselves available for this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.